Welcome back to William Shakespeare's Othello. If you would like to see more on Acts 1 and 2, you might want to go back into my playlist on my channel. I have covered them completely, along with characters, with the different notes that you would need to know about what is going on in the plot line, the setting, and of course, a lot of quotes. But I want to go ahead as we continue into Act 3, kind of give us a little bit of a summary and a reminder of where we've been. So when you look at Othello's Acts 1, 2, and 3, we start off with Act 1 where Iago complains to Rodrigo about the Moor and the fact that Cassio has been promoted over him. Now Iago and Rodrigo go to Brabantio's house and whip the senator into an emotional frenzy by telling him in a very crude, lewd language of his daughter Desdemona's elopement with the Moor. So then Brabantio, who can't believe his daughter would be with Othello, publicly accuses Othello of witchcraft, as he believes that this is the only way his daughter Desdemona would fall in love with a black man. Now Othello calmly tells the story of his courtship later in that act with Desdemona and how she was initially attracted to him because of his adventurous stories. In the same scene, Desdemona then tells her father Brabantio that she is in fact married to Othello. Now Othello is ordered to Cyprus to defend it against a Turkish invasion and requests that Desdemona accompanies him. And in a soliloquy, Iago reveals for the first time that he's heard a rumor that Othello has slept with his own wife, Amelia. So now we move away from Florentine and Italy, and in Act 2 we move over to Cyprus. Now a storm at sea has destroyed the Turkish fleet, so in essence, Othello has won out the day, and he arrives safely in Cyprus, but Iago has arrived first, and he starts working in on trying to destroy Othello by deliberately getting Cassio drunk. Now Cassio happens to be Othello's lieutenant. Iago is passed over in promotion by Cassio, and so Iago doesn't like Cassio either. And so he's going to get Cassio drunk by taking advantage of his low tolerance of alcohol. And Iago speaks with Montano about Cassio, highlighting his vice, his propensity to drink. So now when Montano and Cassio fight, Cassio wounds Montano in a brawl when Montano accuses him of being drunk. So then Iago tells Othello that Cassio started the fight. Consequently, Cassio is dismissed from his lieutenant's office. Now Iago suggests to Cassio that he enlists the help of the wife Desdemona in order to get his job back. So as we start moving into Act 3, Desdemona is going to assure Cassio that she will help him get reinstated. Iago, in a seemingly reluctant fashion, drops hints to Othello about Cassio's honesty and about Cassio's feelings for Desdemona. Now Othello orders Iago to set his wife Emilia to watch Desdemona for any sign of her infidelity with Cassio. So Emilia steals Desdemona's handkerchief, which is a love token given to her by Othello, and gives the handkerchief to Iago. Now, Iago claims to have heard Cassio talk in his sleep of sweet Desdemona and claims that Cassio has Desdemona's handkerchief. Now, when Desdemona denies that she's lost the handkerchief, Othello informs her of its magical powers and sentimental value. So then Cassio gives Bianca the handkerchief, stating that he found it in his bedroom. So there's something very important here about the ideal of infidelity, and we have to have a very poignant piece for people in Shakespeare's time to watch where the infidelity is moving. So Shakespeare wrote in a handkerchief. That's going to be something very simple for all of the actors to hand off to one another. So let's continue on in Act 3 and look a little bit more closely. In Act 3, Scene 3, there's a turning point. You see Othello changing from the devoted and trusting husband to becoming insanely jealous. Now Iago suggests Desdemona's infidelity. He begins subtly by saying, "Ha, not like that. I cannot think it, that he would steal away so guilty-like, seeing you coming." Now the sneering tone of Iago's ha immediately garners interest from Othello. He wonders what Iago has noticed, and he sees Cassio leaving Desdemona. Now Cassio has been talking to Desdemona because they're friends, not lovers, friends, and he's hoping that Desdemona will help him get back his job. And Desdemona said that she would try. She'd say good words about him. So Iago then quickly seizes this opportunity to subtly suggest that this encounter may not have been as innocent as it first appears. Now his words, steal and guilty-like, imply to Othello that Iago believes something's been happening that should not have been. Now, the smallest suggestion is enough to stir Othello's jealousy as he later questions Iago about this encounter. Now, Iago's skillful manipulation of this long discussion leads Othello to generate the idea of Desdemona's affair all by himself. Now, at this point, Othello's jealousy allows him to be completely controlled by Iago. He says, "Look to your wife. Observe her well with Cassio. Wear your eyes thus, not jealous, nor secure." This is the crucial suggestion to the success of Iago's plan. Now, having instructed Cassio to appeal to Desdemona's good nature, it's going to give Othello countless opportunities to see the two of them together. Desdemona's appeals on behalf of Cassio will also take on a new meaning in the jealous eyes of Othello. This now changes Othello from a devoted and trusting husband to becoming insanely jealous. Having already persuaded Othello of Desdemona's unfaithfulness, Iago then obtains the proof that turns Othello's jealousy into murderous rage. He's going to use the handkerchief, a symbol of their love, to destroy their happiness, and it's going to lead to the end of the play. So now we're going to have Othello's soliloquy at the end of Act 3, Scene 3, and the range of the imagery that he uses just underscores the appalling change in his character. There's only one thing now of which Othello is certain: the exceeding honesty of Iago. The Moor is obsessed with the need to prove or disprove Desdemona's fidelity towards him, and Othello's mental agony approaches the emotional climax of the play. This is the first turning point of the drama. So Othello's mind and soul are torn with irrational images of Desdemona's infidelity and of his own unworthiness to have her. So as we move into Act 4, Scene 1, we are going to see all of our favorite characters again: Othello, Iago, Cassio, Desdemona. We've been introduced to Bianca in Act 3, but we'll see some more of her here. And you're also going to be introduced to Lodovico. So some key moments here: Othello becoming more and more insanely jealous is going to strike Desdemona, and he has now made the decision to suffocate her in their bed. Desdemona, not having any idea why Othello is acting this way, sings about her sorrow and her stress. So let's take a look at Desdemona's song in Act 4, Scene 3. "My mother had a maid called Barbary. She was in love, and he she loved proved mad, and did forsake her. She had a song of willow, an old thing 'twas, but it expressed her fortune, and she died singing it. That song tonight will not go from my mind. I have much to do, but to go hang my head all at one side, and sing it, like poor Barbary." So what is the significance of her song? Well, as she's preparing for bed, she's afraid that Othello is wrongly angry with her for being unfaithful. She sings the Willow Song, which is a mournful folk ballad in which a lady laments her lost love. Now, she only has time to sing 2 verses before she breaks off in order to talk to her maid Amelia. But Shakespeare's audience would have been familiar with the ending of this original ballad, and they would have known that it foretells a tragic scene. Now, the earliest record of the Willow Song that Desdemona is singing is in a book of lute music from 1583. There are 8 verses, and it was originally about a man who dies because of his love's cruelty and betrayal. Shakespeare is changing the victim in the song from a man to a woman, so it makes it more relevant to Desdemona. Now, Shakespeare's audience would have understood that the inclusion of the song foretells imminent tragedy for Desdemona due to the cruelty of her lover Othello. And in the play, Desdemona says she learned the song from her mother's maid Barbara, who met with a tragic end while even singing it. And later in the play, Desdemona's own maid Amelia makes Othello realize Desdemona's innocence, and she is stabbed by her own husband Iago for betraying him. She's now going to refer to the song and its ominous prediction, and then she sings it herself as she dies. "What did thy song bode, lady? Hark, canst thou hear me? I will play the swan, and die in music. Willow, willow, willow. Moor, she was chaste. She loved thee, cruel Moor. So come as my soul to bliss as I speak true. So speaking as I think, I die, I die. As well as a forewarning the audience of the tragedy to come, the Willow Song gives both Desdemona and Emilia a way to openly express their sorrow, as they can't articulate their distress. It's going to highlight the innocence of both women and the cruel acts of their husbands. So let's go ahead and move into Act 5. Now, there's a high number of imperatives here. It demonstrates the power Iago now has over Rodrigo. So when you take a look at Act 1, Scene 1, and Act 5, Scene 1, both are going to take place outside at night. Both scenes feature Iago and Rodrigo, and both of them are plotting villainy. Now, Iago gets Rodrigo to do his dirty work and emphasizes the upper hand he has in the relationship and his capabilities as a manipulator, not only of Othello. He states, "He hath the daily beauty in his life, and that makes me ugly." So now you have to wonder, is Iago contemptuous of himself, or is he here now referring to Cassio's natural charm and manners? Either way, Iago sees himself as ugly, but it seems only in comparison to Cassio's good looks, education, and charm. So a little bit then of the summary of this particular scene. From behind, Iago darts in and stabs Cassio in the leg and then runs away. Now from a distance, Othello hears Cassio's shouts of pain and believes that Iago has killed Cassio. Now moved by Iago's loyalty to him, Othello steels himself to and kill Desdemona in her bed. Now here you can see Iago's actions are cowardly. He sent Rodrigo ahead of him and then attacked Cassio from behind. So Othello once again has completely misinterpreted what's going on. He's completely trusting Iago and what Iago said he was going to do, and doesn't know that Iago is going to do something else, which is to Iago's benefit. Now Othello's professed admiration for Iago, coupled with his newly misogynistic and violent plans for Desdemona, are contrasting poignantly from his declarations of love in Act 1, Scene 3. He's a completely different man at this point. So as we continue on with Act 5, Scene 1, Iago now is going to reveal the full extent of his villainy and treachery in line 37, killing the character with whom he's plotted on stage since Act 1, Scene 1 in order to cover his tracks. Poor Rodrigo. Although the other characters dismiss Bianca as a prostitute, she then shows real affection for Cassio in his pain. Iago, however, uses misogynistic stereotypes to implicate the innocent Bianca. "Well, gentlemen all, I do suspect this trash to be a party in this injury." And he's further putting himself in the clear for stabbing Cassio. As we continue into Scene 2, Othello has already decided he's going to kill Desdemona. Nothing she says is going to make any difference at all. So this dialogue is full of legalistic language, as if Othello has tried her, found her guilty, and is now sentencing her to death. Othello feels he has to kill Desdemona, but he doesn't really want to do it. His love for her still makes this an unbearably difficult task. But Othello is still in the grip of jealousy and is being irrational. He ignores all of her pleas and all the evidence because he's no longer the honorable, noble man that once he was. So let's get to the end of Act 5. Our characters are Emilia, Othello, Desdemona, Iago, Cassio, and you have some others in here that we've seen slightly minor characters such as Montano, Graciano, and Lodovico. What does the ending mean? Well, the play ends in a spectacle of tragic violence. Emilia intercepts Othello after he's murdered Desdemona, and she tells him of Iago's treachery. Her revelation is corroborated by information from Cassio and a letter that was found in the dead Rodrigo's pocket. Now, in a vain attempt to prevent his scheme from being revealed, Iago then stabs and kills Emilia and is taken prisoner, while Othello, lamenting the loss of his wife, kills himself next to her. Notably, Iago is left wounded but alive at the end of the play. Cassio, being in charge, is now charged with determining Iago's punishment, and urges the time, the place, and the torture. Oh, enforce it. The ending symbolizes the culmination of the violent forces put in motion by Iago at the start of the play. He aimed in Act 2 upon practicing upon Othello's peace and quiet, even to madness. Now, Iago's been so successful that Othello feels compelled to kill himself, explaining that I kissed thee ere I killed thee. No way but this, killing myself to die upon a kiss. Now, not only has Othello murdered his beloved wife, but now he also has to face the horrible truth that his suspicions of her adultery were completely unfounded. So Othello's suicide serves as a kind of trial in which he decides on and enacts a punishment for his crime of killing Desdemona. Because he finds out that he's killed an innocent, he feels he should kill himself. In his final speech, he explains how he hopes to be remembered, saying, "When you shall these unlucky deeds relate, speak of me as I am." Perhaps because he knows he's never been fully accepted by Venetian society, and that they'll be quick to twist his reputation into that of a barbaric killer, Othello spends his final moments reminding his audience of the ways he has faithfully served Venice. Now, before he stabs himself, Othello draws a comparison to how he killed a malignant and turbaned Turk, the circumcised dog. Now, this comparison might suggest that Othello, as a result of his crimes, now sees himself as an outcast who deserves to die in the same way. Or it might imply that by voluntarily punishing himself for his crimes, he acts in a way that is consistent with his previous military valor. Either way, Othello asserts an autonomy and control over his destiny that contrasts sharply with the way he's been manipulated throughout most of the play. So we look at the idea of Shakespeare and Othello. Now, Othello is regarded as the play about sexual jealousy. Now, Shakespeare was writing Othello in 1603 at the same time, working on his other play, Measure for Measure, which is another play about sexual desire. And these are both based on Italian stories found in Cynthia Giraldi's book, Gli Hecatomithi, which is known as 100 Tales. Othello and Desdemona only recently eloped when Othello is convinced of Desdemona's infidelity. The couple's not yet consummated their marriage, and he says, "Come, my dear love, the purchase made, the fruits are to ensue, the profits yet to come, tween me and you." Now, when Othello and Desdemona travel to Cyprus together on separate ships, why, it's not explained, but it does mean that the couple have had very little time together to build their bonds of newlywed marriage. Now, the fact that Cassio's accused lover makes Desdemona's alleged infidelity all the more painful. Remember, he is the lieutenant. He's supposed to be the most loyal to Othello. So it's like having a double betrayal. So when we look at the original story of Clinthio, a Moorish captain that was in 100 Tales, and you look at Shakespeare's Othello, a lot of them look very similar. They're both named Othello, but you take a look at the differences. The Moorish captain had been happily married for years, whereas in Shakespeare he's newly married. Cynthio stays a Moor, but Shakespeare's Othello, he has converted over to Christianity for Desdemona. Now, the age is not specified for Cynthio, but he's quite handsome, but Othello is much older. He's more than 40, just to make him look much different in age to Desdemona. One hates the idea of leaving his wife behind, but in Shakespeare's Othello, he doesn't mind if his wife stays in Venice. We have Cassio being married in one story, but he's a bachelor in Shakespeare's. Iago has a daughter and is also in love with Desdemona, but thinks she loves Cassio, so he attempts to kill Cassio and beats her to death with a sand-filled stocking, whilst Othello stands by. Whereas in Shakespeare's Othello, he is married to Emilia, but he is childless, and he actually sets her up to look like she's in love with Cassio. Now, in the end, the Moorish captain Othello is tortured and incriminated by Iago and then banished, hunted down and killed by Desdemona's eventual family. Whereas in Shakespeare's Othello, he kills himself. Brabantio is going to die from grief over his daughter, and then after his arrest, Iago, like Othello, is Cynthio's tale, never will speak. Well, that should do it for Othello. If you have any other questions on Shakespeare's Othello, please let me know down in the comments if there's anything more I can answer. If you'd like to see some other Shakespearean tales, go check out some of my playlists on my channel. And as always, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. Thanks for stopping by.